Hey coders, welcome back to our SwiftUI series. Today we're learning to create custom UI components that are reusable and uniquely styled. We'll build a custom button with color, outline, and navigation, an animated gradient background, a reusable text input field, and a customized image to our home page. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be adding this from a project from scratch, but of course feel free to add it to an existing project if you'd like. So I'm going to start off with an iOS app template here. I'm going to change this to instead be custom UI example, Swift UI. Make sure my interface is on Swift UI, language on Swift. Everything looks great. I'm going to go ahead and create my project here. But if you want to follow along in an existing, kind of project, feel free to do so. And you'll be able to add these kind of custom features into any Swift project that you'd like. So the first thing we're going to do is we're not even going to explore our content view quite yet. We're actually going to create a custom button. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and the bottom left corner here, we're going to press the plus button, and we're going to say new file from template. We're actually going to create a SwiftUI view, but we're not going to use it like a normal SwiftUI view in the sense of like we're kind of displaying a new phone screen to someone. We're going to have this host our button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it custom button. I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And now in our custom button, we can get rid of this text hello world. We're certainly not going to need it. We can actually add a couple variables. So what we're going to do is we're going to have some errors here. It's going to get mad at me because I deleted, the hello world. We're going to create two variables. And the first one's going to be a title. And we're going to say that this is going to be a string. Something I'd like to do going forward with a lot of my kind of tutorials is I want to start adding more comments. So in this case, this would represent the button text, just so when we're kind of going through the code, you kind of know a little bit more about what we're talking about. We're going to create another variable here, and we're going to call it action. So variable action, and then we're going to say that this is something that's just going to be voided for now, because it's going to kind of handle any action if we need it to, and this is going to be an action that is triggered when the button is pressed. Oh, I forgot to include void, I'm sorry. I don't know where that error was for. Wonderful. So this is going to handle any action just by default. By adding this void, it's basically nothing's going to happen right now when we press it. But we can, of course, change it up that later. Maybe what we'll do is we'll have our button lead to navigation, so you can kind of have a custom navigation button. All right, let's go ahead and take care of some of these errors. So let's go ahead and add a button here. So we'll just simply type out button, and we'll set the action to currently just be an action. So whatever we're passing through, if we do decide to pass something through, that will be handled by this button right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a brace next. We're going to add a little bit of space so we kind of have some visuals to work with. Let's go ahead and add our text. And we'll just say that maybe it's the title. So whatever we kind of decide to title this button when we're calling upon it in the customization, it's going to set the custom title. Right, so we have that variable that we created earlier. Let's go ahead and add some customizations here. So we can have a font. Maybe we can have it be headline. Of course, do whatever you'd like. So sets the text font to headline. We can also add some padding. So we can do dot padding. We're just going to leave it empty here. And we'll say adds padding for a large tab area. Next, we can add a frame. And so what this frame is going to do is going to allow the kind of button to expand as large as we need it to be. And we're actually going to set that to be infinity. So we're going to say frame, and we're going to put max width with a capital W here. We're going to add a colon, and we're going to say dot infinity. So this is basically going to allow our button to expand out as far as we need it to. Next, what we can do is we can add a background. So let's go ahead and add dot background. And here we can add the color. So if you want to just use a system color, you can. So you can do color dot blue. Actually, let's do purple. I've been in the mood for purple lately. Oh, I forgot to add my comments. Haha. But essentially, this is just going to increase the button size, and the background is going to add background color to button. I always recommend people to add comments and then like hardly do it myself, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite and I'm trying not to be a hypocrite. Some people also joke that you shouldn't comment in your code, so then like if you have a job, you're unfireable because like who else is going to fix the code? If there's no comments, only one person knows how that works. But commenting is good. Okay. We're also going to change the foreground color. So we're going to go foreground style. This is where we can change the color as well. Let's go ahead and do white. So this is going to change the color of the text on the button. Next, what we're going to do is we can add a corner radius. So we'll do dot corner radius. We can set this to be any number we'd like. I typically do it like above 15 or 20, but that's just a personal preference. I'm going to do 25 for mine. And this is going to kind of round the corners of the button. Next, we can add an overlay. So this is going to overlay with an outline. Well, let's go for like a light blue color and we can kind of see how that looks. And, you know, maybe we can change it a little bit later on, but it's going to kind of bold and kind of add like emphasis around the button. So what we can do is we can type dot overlay. And then from there, we can add a, oops, oh, but no, no, that got there. We can add a rounded rectangle. And from there we can set its corner radius. And we're going to set this corner radius to be the exact same corner radius of the button. So I'm going to set mine to be 25. So whatever you selected your corner radius to be, I'd suggest doing the exact same thing there. And we're actually going to add a stroke now. And what we're going to say is stroke. So dot stroke. And then we're going to go ahead and add the color. So maybe we'll try blue. And we'll also update the opacity so it's not super intrusive. So we'll do color.blue.opacity. And then we'll fill in our opacity. We'll say 0.7 maybe. Again, we'll kind of see how this looks later. And if we really want to change it, we absolutely can. Just whatever those values are, play around with them. I'm going to add a comma. And I'm also going to add the line width. And that's going to kind of change how thick that the outline of this rectangle is going to be. We will try 2 for now. Cool. Let's go ahead and exit this overlay. So we're going to go to our bracket down here, and we're also going to add a shadow. So we'll say dot shadow. And from here, we're going to add a color, opacity, and radius. So we'll say color, and that will be color dot, let's try gray. We can also change the opacity, so dot opacity. And let's change this to be maybe 0.5. We can always come back and change it if we'd like. We're then going to add a comma, and we're going to add the radius. And from here, we're going to have it be 5. We're going to add a comma. We're going to have an x and y value. I'm actually going to set the x to be 0. And I'm going to add the y, so comma, y to be 5. Amazing. Okay, so we've added quite a lot of code here. And I'm just going to add a comment here. So this is going to add a shadow. So I don't want to add a comment inside my bracket, so that might cause some issues. Adds a shadow for depth. We are missing some arguments for our preview here, and if you wanted to, add the title and string, you totally can. but we're not really going to be using the preview on this SwiftUI file, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. And what we can do is we can actually go back to our content view, and we can kind of see what our button looks like. We can also create a navigation. So let's go back to our content view here. We can get rid of the globe and the hello world. We won't really be needing them with all of our customization. If you really want to leave them in, feel free to do so. Let's go ahead and create a navigation stack above our VStack. So we'll say navigation stack, add a brace, and also under our VStack brace here, we're going to add another closing. Whenever you make an opening, always make sure to also include a closing. Let's add some text here. So we'll say text, and we will have it say homepage. Then we can go ahead and add a navigation link. So we'll say navigation link. Here we'll want to include our destination. So we'll say destination. Let's create a detail view, and we'll have to create that on our Swift file. We'll say detail view. We'll add our brackets here. Then we'll add a brace because we are going to be adding some code. And this is where we're going to now reference our custom button. We'll then need to provide a title and an action. So our title is going to have to be a string. So we'll say title, comma, and we'll say go to details. So whatever you want your button to say, that's where you're going to be adding this string. And then for the action, we're just going to pass an empty action for now. So what we'll do is we'll just add opening brace and a closing brace. So that's going to be like our action. You probably do have an error on your screen because it says, hey, it can't find detail view in scope. Let's go to the bottom left, new file from template. We'll create a SwiftUI view. We'll call it detail view. We will hit create. And from there, we can just add some text instead of hello world. We'll just say, welcome to detail view. So we did a lot of work, and now it's time to see the fruits of our labor on our content view. Here is our homepage in our custom button with go to details. This is kind of how you can create those custom buttons. Everything that we've specified here. I might change the kind of outline and color because it's a little bit hard to see the blue. Let's actually go ahead and run it in the simulator. I find it's a little bit easier to see. We can also change the line width if we feel like the blue isn't popping out enough. It is a pretty similar color to purple. So even if we wanted to go here and play around with some of those things, like with the blue, if we wanted to make the opacity, what if we change the line width to 5, right? We might notice now in our preview, we'll have to rerun the file, but we might notice that it's a lot thicker. So let's kind of see how it looks. And then we'll make some changes and we can see those updates on the preview a little bit quicker. I guess you can kind of see the blue. It might not come through in the video that well. But again, we can kind of change the thickness, but this is our kind of customized button that we can use wherever we want. We're not really going to be focusing on the navigation today, but any additional navigation you can, of course, do with this button. This is just purely an example. So let's go ahead and stop running our app on the simulator. I'm just going to refresh our preview here. So we changed the line width, and the blue is much, much more noticeable. And even if we were to maybe change this opacity back to 1, go back to here, the blue will be super duper noticeable now. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of like neon or like Miami Vice colors. I kind of like that. But that is how we are able to kind of create that custom button. You know, we're just passing an empty action currently because, you know, we're handling our navigation with a navigation link and things like that. So we don't have to really worry about, you know, adding too much detail there. But let's go ahead and now kind of create a gradient background with a little bit of an animation. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the bottom left here, and we're going to create another file from template, SwiftUI view. Let's go ahead and call this gradient view. Actually, gradient background. I think that's probably better because we are going to be using it as a background after all. Amazing. Okay, so what we'll need to do is we'll need to create a variable that's going to handle our animation. So what we'll do is under our structure here, we can go ahead and type @state, call it private variable. We'll call it animate gradient. I'm going to set this to be false for now. So this is going to be, it's going to track the animation state for gradient movement. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and hop into our body here. We can get rid of that text for hello world, and we're going to replace it with a linear gradient. Just got a little bit of space here as well. All right, we're going to open up a bracket. If you want to hit return, you can kind of use that autofill feature there. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to fill in the required details. So for our color here, we're going to add square brackets, and we're going to say color dot whatever purple you want under the sun, whatever purple. I already have a color in my mind, whatever color you want under the sun. So in this case, purple, apparently. I'm on my purple arc. Then you can separate your colors by a comma, and we'll do another color, color dot orange. You can see how that looks. Next, we'll need to add a start point and an end point. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our ternary operator here. So for our start point, we're going to say animate gradient. So it's going to check if this is being animated. We're going to add our question mark for our ternary. We're going to say dot top leading with a capital L. Else here with our kind of colons. So remember that ternary operator. And then we're going to say dot bottom trailing. Cool, and we're going to do something very similar for our endpoint as well. So if animated gradient, add our ternary operator, dot bottom trailing, else with our colon there, we're going to say dot top leading. Oh, look at that. We can see on our preview that our gradient is coming to life. That's a pretty cool gradient. I actually really like that. Orange and purple. Good color combination. Would not complain about those. Cool. Looks pretty good. So I'm just going to comment this here, and it says it's going to create our gradient from purple to orange. Cool stuff. Next thing we need to do is we need to make it cover the entire screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a property here. We're going to say edges, ignoring, safe area. I'm going to add some brackets here, and we're going to say dot all. And you can see now, or if I were to comment this off, we kind of had like this top part of our phone screen. I'll zoom out a little bit here, and the bottom part of our phone screen where they kind of aren't getting covered. It looks a little bit clunky, but if we do this, it's going to cover the entirety of our phone screen here. Pretty cool stuff. Also makes it, a lot more accessible on all devices. So we'll say extends x. How do you spell extend? Oh my goodness, extend. There we go. Not great at spelling. Gradient to cover entire screen. Say not great at spelling and I make a million spelling mistakes, of course. That's why I use the autofill feature, right? All right, next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to reference the property on appear. So this is going to add an action to perform when or right before this view appears, kind of. So it's going to happen right before it appears. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to remove these brackets, and we're going to add a brace. We're going to create some space here, and this is going to toggle the gradient animation with smooth transitions. And what we're going to do is we're going to say with animation, add a bracket, animation dot ease in, out. Then we're going to add another bracket. We're going to add a duration. So we'll say 3. See how that looks. We're going to leave that bracket. We're going to add dot repeat forever. We're going to add another bracket. We're going to say auto reverses. And we're going to set that value to be true. All right. Oh, I have a spelling mistake here with animation. What doesn't it like about it? I cannot find animation in scope. Did I spell it wrong? I believe I did. Hold on. Dot animation. There we go. See, this is why I need to use the autofill feature. So with animation, there we go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to toggle it. So we're going to go within our brace here, make one, and we're going to say animate gradient dot toggle. And we should be all good to go. We can kind of see on the preview here, it's kind of doing like this. It comes in, and it swaps. Actually, these kind of remind me of the Laker colors, but Laker's purple and gold. But still, pretty close to them with the orange here. Pretty cool colors. That's probably why I like it. I'm a big Lakers fan. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. Probably never came up. But this allows us to kind of create that gradient. So let's go ahead and now add our gradient. So what we're going to do is any view that we want to add our gradient, we're going to add it as a Z stack. So under our navigation stack here, we're going to go ahead and declare a Z stack. And we're going to add a brace, and we will need to eventually close off this Z stack. So what I'm going to do is go by our padding here, add another line. I'm going to close off that Z stack. I call it Z stack and Z stack all the time. I'm Canadian, so Z and Z, I refer to them all the time. And this is where we can now call upon our gradient background here. And you can see, whoa, that looks pretty cool. That now on our phone screen, we do have this cool easing and outing of this gradient. It's kind of creating this really cool effect where it's kind of flipping the colors back and forth. And on any Swift view in your entire program, you can reference this background. You might even want to create multiple different gradients if you have some different consistent themes. It doesn't have to be a gradient, it doesn't have to be animated. I kind of just wanted to show what that would look like whenever you're making a program. Do whatever feels best for you. So we're just going to add a comment here, adds animated gradient to our content view. All right, next we're going to be adding a reusable text input field with a unique font and a custom background as well. So let's go ahead and make one more Swift file here. So I'm going to create a new file from template, a SwiftUI view, and we're going to call it custom text field. Amazing. Alrighty, so similar to what we've done before, we're going to want a couple different variables here. So under our structure, we're going to create two variables. The first one is actually going to be a binding variable. So you're going to say at binding var, and we're going to have it be text, and this is going to be a string. So this is going to be binding to pass and update text externally. And the next variable we're going to create is going to be our placeholder. So this is any placeholder text that's going to be displayed when the text is actually empty. We're also going to remove our preview here, just so we're not getting any errors. We're going to see what it looks like either on the simulator or kind of on our preview on our content view. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one more variable, and we're going to say placeholder. And this is going to also be a string. This is that placeholder text. The nice thing about placeholder text is when you click on it and you start typing, it kind of disappears. So like whenever you're entering like a form or something, it might say like name, last name, phone number, and things like that. And as soon as you press on it, you don't have to delete anything. It kind of just like erases when you start texting. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of our text hello world placeholder here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a text field, it's capital T and capital F. And here's where we're going to be having our placeholder text. So we'll say place. We're going to say text. And that is going to be our binding here. So we're going to add the $sign and we're going to add text. So this is going to be showing the placeholder. Until the user types. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and add some properties. We're going to add some padding here. Always a good idea to add padding to not have your UI feel so clustered. So this is going to add padding inside text field. Next thing we're going to do is add a background color here. So we're going to say background. Let's actually change this to be a really light gray. So we're going to go ahead and say color.gray. We'll do opacity. And we'll set this to be 0.2. So this is going to set light gray background in text field. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a corner radius. I love 25. I don't know. I just feel like it's a pretty good corner radius. Rounds the corner of the text field. Then we can add a font here, and instead of having, like the body or the title or things like that, what we can actually do is we can add a custom one. So we'll say font, and then in brackets we'll say .custom. And you can pick whatever font you want, as long as it's not Comic Sans, because, like, obviously, I know someone who I work with, and their font choice on their emails is Comic Sans. Very interesting. So we're going to set our custom font here. So I'm going to use Aviar next.regular. We're also going to provide it with a size. So outside of our kind of string reference here, we're going to add a comma. We're going to say size 16. And you can, of course, change the size to be whatever you want. So this uses custom font and sizing. Wonderful. Let's also add a little bit of padding that's going to be horizontal. So we'll do padding horizontal. So this is going to help with our edges here. Amazing. So the binding text, that's going to connect the text field to any external data as well. Let's go ahead and in our content view, we're going to declare a state variable. And then we're also going to add our custom text field. So let's go ahead and kind of see how we can add that. In our custom content view here, we are going to need to add that state variable at the top. So we're going to make some space here. We're going to say at state private variable. I'm going to say username. And for now, let's just have it equal an empty string. And then maybe under our navigation link here, we can go ahead and add our custom text field. And we, of course, need to provide it with some text and a placeholder. So for the text, let's actually just use our binding of username. So we're going to add the $sign, and we're going to say username. And for our placeholder here, we can just say enter your name. Cool. It's a little bit hard to see on our gradient background, so maybe we need to change the color. I'm just going to comment off our gradient background for now so we can kind of see how it looks. Of course, feel free to customize things as you see fit in order to make the best UI for yourself. But let's go ahead and run the app, and we'll kind of test how it looks and how it feels. Here's our enter your name, has that nice cool font. You can press on it. If you want to ever open up the keyboard when you're kind of doing anything with text fields, you can either use Command K on your Mac, or you can go to the top of your screen here, and under keyboard, you can toggle software keyboard to show or not show. It's a good idea to test with the keyboard being on the screen, because your users are going to be actually using that keyboard if they're using your iOS app and things like that. So you just might have to adjust how that space, that real estate's being taken up. So under our name, we'll do NDC. We can see it uses that nice custom font. Amazing. Looks pretty cool. And we have our enter your name, and you can see as soon as we start typing on it that it will kind of get rid of that enter your name. It doesn't interfere with the user whatsoever. Amazing. I'm going to pause running our app real quick, and let's go ahead and add our custom image. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to first add it to our assets catalog. So you can do so by either kind of right clicking in this tab here and say new image set. You can press the upload, you can press import. I have a little profile image here of monkey cat Luna, one of my favorite cats to kind of follow on Instagram and all that, of them in glasses. So this is called profileimage.jpg. That's what it's referred to on my desktop. If you want to rename it, you can click on it, wait a second, and click again. So click, wait, click. You can also right click, you can delete the item, whatever you need to do to it. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to reference this as profile image with a capital I on image. Once you've added your image to your folder, your assets here, you can go to your content view. And what we're going to do is we're going to add that image to our screen. So I'm going to go ahead and add an image with capital I. And what I can do is I can just reference within a string what it's called. So this is profile image. You don't need to put the extension, like if it's a JPEG or something, just reference to what it's actually called, and it knows where to grab it. Now, this is a little bit big, and we're definitely going to need to resize it. I'm just gonna have my comment real quick. Displays image from assets. As much as I love you, monkey cat Luna, I'm going to need you to shrink down. So what we're going to do is under our image, we're going to add a property, and we're going to say that this needs to be resizable. If I can spell resizable, resizable, there we go. This is going to allow for resizing to fit the frame. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an aspect ratio. So I'm going to do dot aspect ratio, and then this is where you will add the content mode. So we'll say content mode with a capital M, and you can choose what you'd like. I would recommend using fill, but there are a few different options for you to use here. Next, we're going to go ahead and add a frame. So we're going to add dot frame. This is where we're going to add a width and a height. Width 100, we'll set the height to also be 100. And then we will also add a clip shape. So this is going to clip to a circular shape. You can also set a radius if you'd like as well. Oh, I added an N. I'm like, why do I have an error? Because it's not ratio, it's ration. Autofill. It saves lives. It saves code. Dot clip shape. And here we're going to add the shape that we like. So we're going to set ours to be a circle. I'm just going to add some empty brackets here. And this is going to clip our image to a circular shape. You can use the corner radius as well. I think it was 50 we discovered in our other video to get that perfect circle, or just use the clip shape, and whatever shape you want to clip it to works even better. Let's also add an overlay. So we'll say dot overlay. And here we'll add our bracket. Oh, it keeps filling in button. That's pretty weird. We're going to add a circle. We're going to add a stroke. So dot stroke. And we can add a color here. So color dot, we have a lot of purple on the screen. I'm in my purple arc, honestly. So we're going to add our color, and then we're also going to add a line width. So we're going to add a comma, line width with capital W, and from here we can set how thick we want it to be. I think the 5 is a really nice kind of thickness here. Of course, it's your app. We're also going to add a shadow to our overlay as well, just for a little bit more depth. Similar how we did with our button. We're going to add dot shadow. We're going to add its color, or we can just add the radius. So I think by default the shadow is kind of more that grayish black. So let's just add a radius, and we'll have to give it an X and Y value, or we can simply just say 5. It's going to add a glowy effect. Pretty cool stuff, right? There's lots of different ways to use these kind of tools and these properties in Xcode. You can even see like we kind of saved a little bit of time from, adding a corner radius and things for our image. I do like Monkey Cat Luna. I'm going to make her 200 by 200 here. And now we have a little bit bigger of our picture. Let's also uncomment off our gradient background so we can see Monkey Cat Luna in her glory on her homepage. We'll run it in the simulator as well, just so we can show it on the phone itself. Pretty cool stuff here. What a fun little app. Cool stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. In the simulator, we can also see that everything is a little bit easier to see. You can of course like zoom in and zoom out when you are using the preview, but I always kind of like to see how it looks on different phones. I don't think I've ever showed anything on an iPad yet, so let's go ahead and actually boot something up on an iPad. We'll use the 10th generation here. Okay, and we can see that we have our iPad version. Because we made those buttons scale to infinity, you can see that they've really kind of stretched out to the edges of the screen there. We can see our gradient still works. One of the nice things about working in SwiftUI, I don't know what happened to my iPad simulator there. One of the nice things about working in SwiftUI is you already have a lot of these kind of like auto layout adjustments being made. So it's really easy to create apps for both iPhones, iPads, etc. Because a lot of those auto constraining features are also already in action. But that's it for our intro to custom UI components in SwiftUI. Today we built that custom button, the animated gradient background, the text input field, and styled an image. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more Swift tutorials. One thing I kind of want to point out is I made a lot of spelling mistakes. I made a lot of errors, kind of showing that not everybody's perfect. Use that autofill feature when applicable when you are doing your coding. It's going to save you from a lot of head scratches and things like that and really random errors. But the nice thing is the more you kind of use Xcode, the more you kind of write out this code, you'll kind of recognize when you make those silly little mistakes. Like for like where was it? It was in the aspect ratio. I had an N, so it's aspect ratio. Swift doesn't know what that is, but nobody's perfect. You're allowed to make mistakes. We are human after all. Unless you're an AI watching this video. In that case, 10011. I'm just kidding. But you're allowed to make those mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. It's a huge part of life in coding. So don't fret when you make little mistakes. It often also helps if you have other people to review your code and kind of pick up on those errors. So just wanted to mention that. Nobody's perfect. Anyways, until next time, dream big and code bigger. Take care.